Folks, we're in the latter half of the Gospel of Luke, chapter 9, and yesterday we talked about the king, King Herod, confused about who is doing the miracles. If I killed John, I beheaded him, and soon after that, Jesus is up near Caesarea Philippi, and he asks the apostles, after they came back from their mission, who do people say that I am? So he poses that actual question to his 12, and they were immediately said, Elijah. Some said ancient prophet. Some say John the Baptist. So this was a dramatic time in the early years of Jesus' ministry with his apostles, where there was drama. People were gossiping, sharing the news, what's going on, what's the next thing that's got everyone, talking, and it's about who this Jesus is. So the crowds are following, the 12 come back from their mission, and Jesus poses that question, who do people say that I am? So he's probably getting them to think, getting them to admit. And it was here that Peter, this is Luke's account, not Matthew's, it's a little different. Peter says, he doesn't even listen to any of the nonsense or the noise, the hearsay and the gossip. He says what's on his heart and mind. And he tells Jesus and everyone present, he says, you are the Christ, the Son of God. So right there, someone had the faith to say it. Now, in Matthew's account, Jesus kind of rebukes him a little bit and says, don't tell anybody, just not yet. He also tells them, this is his first prediction of his passion throughout the Gospels. He says it two other times, so 3 total. He warns them that the Son of Man must go up to Jerusalem and suffer. He doesn't tell them how. He doesn't tell them he's going to die. He just says the Son of Man must suffer. So he's preparing them in the early years. This is probably the first third of the 3-year ministry. Peter confessed, and his faith made him declare. It says right here, Peter said, in reply, the Christ of God. And then he rebuked them and directed them not to tell anybody. Which is ironic, because when you tell someone not to tell anybody, someone in a group of 12 is probably gonna tattletale. Can't hold the secret that long. Especially during the days when they had no smartphones. That's how news got around. So I will segue into the feast day. I'm wearing red. It is the feast of the Martyrs, Cosmas and Damian. And they are revered. They were born in Syria or in Arabia. It was with devout Christian parents. They were twin brothers. And these twin brothers were gifted at healing. And so they, throughout their ministry, were what they called, I don't exactly know how to say it in Aramaic, so I'll just kind of give a rough translation in English. They say unmercenary physicians, so I don't know what that means. I think that's an old school term of they were volunteers. Mercs are people who are hired guns. But yeah, there's just something I learned when I was reading up on their hagiography, which is a biography on saints. Anyways, it was around 270 after Christ died. So 270 AD. Not CE. CE is some made up thing, several decades ago. That isn't history. That's someone saying, I don't like Jesus and he doesn't exist, so we're not going to use the term AD, after Christ died. But 270 is, as a teacher, I'm kind of a stickler on that. So is Neil deGrasse. he gave a spiel in a video about there's no such thing as BCE or CE, meaning before the common era or after the common era. It's just atheist nonsense. They're trying to kill Jesus in history. It is 2025 after the year of our Lord. That's why it's 2025. AD. Anyhow, the brothers, Cosmas and Damian, were twins. They grew up in a family of 7 boys. And they were the oldest. So they kind of grew up in Turkey, on a seaport near a province called Cilicia. So from a young age, they pursued medical studies, and they, the sciences, they hone in their skills in healing, and they are known to have blended like scientific knowledge, probably Greek, Aristotle. Discipline was, if you wanted to be a doctor, like Luke, who was a Greek, he was known as a physician as well. You definitely had to study Aristotle, he was the first biologist and the first natural philosopher, basically environmental science nowadays. So Cosmas and Damian were smart, and they were healers, physicians, and so forth. And and the legend goes, they had this a lot of faith. They were a Christian family, and they saw the physician healing thing as their divine calling, and they practiced it everywhere for free. Hence the term unmercenary physicians. They had very unique backgrounds. They were cosmopolitan, in Mediterranean times during this time, that was normal. Everyone was, going all over the Mediterranean, and were very much diverse, just like Paul and some of the apostles. But they took care of everyone, even animals, the poor especially. And they lived, in a pagan society, Roman rule. This was really at the heart of the persecutions. And they had a famous miracle associated with them. They took some leg from an African, and I don't know the details, but they amputated it from someone who was dying and put it on someone who had gangrene, and they had a gangrenous leg, and they took it from a Moor. So that is a term of like a African Muslim, or someone from the north of Africa. This was actually before Islam, but they called them Moors, and they're pagans. They weren't Christians always. So, but and there was a miracle. Apparently, the transfer, they did this transplant of a leg from a Moor to someone who had white skin, and he survived. So it's kind of interesting. And word got out, and their fame spread. And then Emperor Diocletian heard about it, and this was in the heart of the great persecution during that time, 300s, a lot of martyrs. And so they were arrested. And so Cosmas and Damian were enchained, put in prison, and they refused their Christian beliefs, and they refused to sacrifice to pagan gods. This was very common during this time. If you were even hinted at being a Christian, you were killed, martyred, crucified, without a trial. And if it was even suspect, they would test you by having you sacrifice to pagan gods, because if you didn't, then you were a Christian, and if you did, then they'd leave you be. They would, and some Christians did that to survive. That's in history as well. So, but they endured horrific tortures. They were stoned, they were arrowed, they were drowned, they were crucified. They still lived. So very crazy stuff going on with their martyrdom. And then finally they were beheaded in the year 303. So they were in their 30s. Actually, they died both together as twins, a horrible martyr death, and their younger brothers. So it wasn't just them. It was 5 of the boys of this Christian family. They were 33 years old. And so afterwards, their life of martyrdom was remembered. In the Universal Church, their relics are venerated widely throughout the world. And in Constantinople, there's a great basilica, or at least a cathedral there for Cosmas and Damian. And around the 5th century, so a couple hundred years later, they were widely, venerated, and their story was well known. So a lot of martyrs' stories. There was hundreds, and you can see that also in the Book of Saints, where we have 10,000 saints in that book, and it's old school. It's been well done over the years. And then they were canonized saints soon after, and they are the patron saints of physicians, surgeons, and pharmacists, etc., and barbers. I don't know why the barber thing is in there, but yeah. And their feast day is today, September 26th. So pray, Google up Cosmas and Damian, maybe get a cool video, and look up their legacy of martyrdom, and they were persecuted for their faith. And so it is one of the cool, stories in the church. Sad, tragic, but their martyrdom was really not ordinary. They just wouldn't die, and eventually they were beheaded, but not after they were killed a couple times over, kind of like Saint Philomena's martyrdom. So, all right, enjoy. God bless. And as always, those who subscribe, those who share and like and engage, you are a part of my flock. You're my sheep. I shared this with my bishop last week. He was really happy to hear that I'm doing something during this time. I'm about to crash, as you can see. My eyes are getting kind of hazy, and I'm getting exhausted. So I gotta go. God bless, and I'll see you at Mass.